Hey gamers, Maniac here with GameAccess.net. I'm kind of surprised by the support I got for the last video that I posted. I normally don't get too personal in these videos for many reasons, but this is a story that I've been wanting to tell for a while, and I figured, heck, it's been 20 years, who cares at this point? A little bit of background on myself. I well, you guys know me for my channel basically, but one of my best friends growing up was a person who I refer to on this channel as the unknown camera person. And by the way, the unknown camera person is aware that they are referred to that on these channels. They are not mad. So just so we get this out of the way, when I refer to the unknown camera person, they are fully aware of these videos. They are fully aware of all the stories that I have to tell about whenever they and I would hang out. And they told me flat out they are completely accepting of any stories that I tell, so long as I just refer to them as the unknown camera person. So we have permission there to tell this story, of course. And it's a good story, at least I think it's a good story. A lot of people have been talking about multiplayer gaming, or what the old days of multiplayer gaming were like before the rapid onset of the internet, whether it be through Steam, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, and such. You know, these systems didn't always exist. In fact, in some cases, they're, a lot of people know how recent they are. And so, what kind of options did people have before that became an availability? High-speed internet did not always exist. The computers existed. They didn't always have access to cable providers, DSL providers were not always available. So cellular providers were not, were not designed for that sort of thing. So what were the options back then? Well, you had two. If you had a modem, you could dial your buddy's computer if you were intending to play a video game against them. Or you could have a local area network between your two computers, whether it be through a patch cable or a simple router. In which case, one person would have their computer, they connect to the other computer using the router or patch cable, and the two of you could play a PC game against each other. When I was a kid, I met the unknown camera person, and we ended up bonding over PC gaming. I had just gotten my first major PC, and the game at the time was Quake, the original Quake by id Software. And I remember, I think the earliest games that I remembered back then were Mario, Sonic the Hedgehog. I never had a Super Nintendo, but I had kind of given up on the Nintendo stuff at that time. I would later get back to it, but that's neither here nor there. But I never had a Super Nintendo. My sister had the Genesis. That's where I ended up playing Sonic the Hedgehog on. I never had a Nintendo 64, and I only had a PlayStation 1 that would play Metal Gear Solid. So when I first found out about, the first-person shooter genre, and I think I was probably like somewhere between 12 and 15 years old, it got me. I was interested pretty much immediately. I'm like, this is a game where you can aim and fire at monsters and demons and aliens and stuff in like caverns and castles and all this cool stuff. Sign me up. And I remembered Christmas 1997, I got a copy of Quake. I asked for a copy of Quake 2 from my parents, and I got it. And I remember spending hours late at night on weekends just fighting the Strogg. I was just so enamored. I don't think I ever beat the game because it was just so long, and it was some of the later acts were very labyrinthian, and you had to find I didn't have a walkthrough obviously, so I'm like, what key am I supposed to find? Where the heck am I supposed to go? And then I just eventually just gave up. But it was a fun game regardless, and the multiplayer was a lot of fun too. This was a game that obviously supported LAN play. And I remember picking up the game and playing my friends against it. And obviously by the time Quake 3 came out, Jedi Knight came out, it was all hands on deck basically. We were playing games against each other. At that point, one of us would have a laptop. So what we do is we'd go to one person's house, with the laptop with a game installed on it. We'd LAN into that with like a patch cable or something, and we'd play video games that way. Whoever hosted was usually the winner, but that's just how it was. And that was a lot of fun. What wasn't a lot of fun was school. Um, I don't talk about this stuff too much because I don't like to air my business or certainly sound like this is not a channel for like me to whine, and God knows you guys don't want to hear me whining. But needless to say, and I've said this in in previous videos, so this shouldn't be a shock to everybody. I learned more playing video games than I learned in school. I had a public school education, and up until I got into high school, I can't imagine having any positive memories of school whatsoever. For many reasons, and you can draw your own conclusions there. Was it the teachers? Was it the students? Yeah. Was it this? Was it that? Yep, pretty much. Whatever you could ask a question as to why, as to why, and whatever guess you throw, I'll just say, yeah, it's probably true, or it would have happened to me, and certainly happened to the unknown camera person. So, needless to say, any school events, quote unquote. I mean, I barely wanted to spend time in school when I was forced to be in school. Why would I have interest in going to further, why would I have interest in basically seeing these horrible, horrible people any longer than I had to, essentially? Needless to say, though, at the time of middle school, and again, this is between 6th and 8th grade, I think I was somewhere between 12 and 15 years old. I can't remember exactly, and don't quote me on that. There were social events, literally called that, socials. Now, for those of you who don't know what a social is, think a dance, but not called a dance. Because we were kids. Let me be honest, 12 years old, I had no amorous affection for anyone at that time. All I wanted to do was play video games and watch movies. Did I want to be married to somebody? Did I want to have a girlfriend? No, or, whatever. I didn't want to be in a relationship at that time. I had no interest whatsoever in anything like that. And so you can imagine how awkward it would be for somebody like that at that time to be put in a situation like that, particularly around people that were just horrible to me under normal circumstances. So as you can imagine, I find out about a social or a dance. I don't want to go. The problem is that my parents were of a mind, and you may be parents and you may have this mind. By the way, if you do, you're wrong. So just be aware of that. That if I don't want to do something, it's because of some stupid reason or something like that. And that if I just do it, I'll enjoy it. If you have that opinion about somebody else that's not you, you're an idiot, and you should be called an idiot. So let's just get that out of the way. The problem is that my parents were of this mind at that time. And needless to say, let me just break down as to what a social was, or at least what the socials were for kids that age at that particular school that I went to. They would usually open up the cafeteria and the gymnasium, which were adjacent to each other in the building, so they could get away with doing that. They'd have, teachers and administrators basically proctoring it. They'd have snacks and stuff like that available. They'd play really loud music in the cafeteria. And they'd have tables set up so that people could have their snacks and chill out or dance if they wanted to. And then they'd have the gymnasium set up so that people could play basketball. They gave us exactly one basketball. So that's what a social was, at least in the school that I went to. Now, you could probably say to yourself, my God, that sounds really boring. And you'd be right. You'd be completely right. It's not like they were playing good music. I mean, this was just around the time grunge was taking over. You think they were playing any of that? No, they were playing music from the Mickey Mouse Club, the 50s Mickey Mouse Club. And not even the good 90s version. And like I said, the people were horrible. I only had like maybe 2 or 3 people that I actually wanted to see. And as far as I remember, they didn't go. So, needless to say, my parents found out about this event somehow. Maybe I told them in passing or something like that. I honestly don't remember. Maybe they saw it on a calendar or something, and they basically hounded me to go. Now, in case you're curious, well, how does an event like this happen? Typically speaking, just finances and stuff like that. The school was basically had to fund this thing, but in order to make it like funding neutral, and they were fine with doing it funding neutral, but they had to at least make a break even on this because it was a public school. To have the event, they needed to have, I think they were selling tickets of about $10 a person, and they needed to have a minimum of 100 people actually go. Now, there were more than enough students in my grade to cover that if more than enough students in my grade actually wanted to attend. But needless to say, we had that amount. We had at least probably double that amount of students. I can't remember exactly how many students were in my grade at that time, but we did have plenty of students to cover that amount. And for like the whole month of October, I think this was probably like October '96 or something like that. Every day, my parents hounded me for hours and hours and hours. Every day, I'd get home. Where's your ticket? Did you buy the ticket? Why didn't you buy the ticket? And I'd have to tell them, it's like, I don't want to go. And that just wasn't an acceptable answer to them. And again, if you're a parent with that kind of attitude, you're an idiot. You're a bad parent. But needless to say, let's move on. So, after about maybe a week or two of actually having to deal with this, I bought a ticket just to shut them up. But what essentially happened is that obviously I'd have to go to this event. My parents dragged me to it. You know, they made me. Now that I had a ticket, obviously they could get away with forcing me to go to it. So I went, and it was exactly as I described, and it was exactly as boring to me as you can imagine. This was before portable computers were a thing. This was before smartphones. You know, like I'm sure nowadays, like if I was doing something like that, I'd spend the whole time on my phone, basically doing anything fun, you know, doing things that would actually be fun. But we didn't have that option back then. And like I said, the only thing I did for like 4 hours was basically just hang out in the gymnasium while like 30 or 40 boys fought over the one ball to try to shoot hoops, basically. God, that was an awful experience. So after that, I learned my lesson. Don't tell your folks when one of these events are going to happen. That way they don't know. That way they won't hound you over it. Now, I talked to the old man. I talked to the unknown camera person about this a couple of times as to how I remember this story. The unknown camera person seems to remember this story a little differently than I do. But needless to say, let me just kind of talk through it, and then I'll say, well, maybe where I got something wrong, but I don't think it's really that relevant to the point. Fast forward to seventh grade. The event is, at least a social event is going to happen. It's announced that it's going to happen. And to please start buying tickets for the event during lunchtime. I don't tell my parents about it. Because why would I? I don't want to go. I know I don't want to go. I know I'm not going to enjoy it. I know I'd rather do something fun. Why would I tell them? Who are just going to hound me into it. So I don't. They because they don't hound me, I don't buy a ticket. But here was the interesting thing about this. Now, I can't remember what time of year it was. It was certainly somewhere in the fall, somewhere between September and December, so somewhere in that timeline. Can't remember exactly when. They obviously, it would have different grades on different nights. So, like, don't say, like, well, obviously the sixth grades was in October, but for all I know, they could have had seventh grades in, like, you know, December or November or something. I honestly don't remember. Needless to say, I didn't buy a ticket. But apparently, this is something I didn't realize. I wasn't alone in not buying a ticket. Because from what I was told, and what I told you guys earlier, you need to have about 100 people buy a ticket. They didn't. 100 people, seventh grade, 100 people did not buy tickets. And every day that passed, they would say, look, you have to, you know, there'd be an announcement at the end of the day or so. look, you have to buy, seventh graders, you have to buy tickets to this event or else we're not going to have it. We don't currently have enough tickets sold to have this event. Until it got to about the weekend before the event happened, that wasn't gonna sway me. Like I said, these people were horrible. Why would I want to make them happy? These people were horrible to me. They treated me horribly, and they canceled it. They absolutely canceled the event. And I remember a lot of people who were very, very, very mean to me, being very disappointed about this announcement. I asked them why, and they said, "Well, if there's not going to be an event now, there's not going to be an event. You know, they're probably not going to have a second one. You know, later in the year because now they know they can't sell enough tickets. So, basically, that's it. There's not going to be any social events for this year, probably." I'm sure that'll be my YouTube. What do you call it for this year? No skin off my back. So what did I do instead? I had a LAN party. I actually had fun. You see, the unknown camera person had a contact in one of the local museums. I won't say which one because I don't even know if they're still around anymore. So I don't think saying the name would matter. But this museum actually had a whole bunch of network computers together with Quake on them. And they were willing to lease out these computers for one night a weekend. For like, every weekend for like a good couple of months. Just to have a Quake LAN. And I remembered going on those computers, and these were computers that were connected on a high-speed network. So, like, this was like real one-to-one, online play. And I remember towards the end of the night, the administrators, meaning the computer administrators, and again, this was not a school event. It was me, the unknown camera person, the unknown camera person's neighbor, and a whole bunch of just other people who I didn't know at all, as well as the museum's administrators and stuff like that, who were, probably like, I guess, high school age at least, saying, we're going to Team Fortress. We're loading the Team Fortress mod. And I remember playing a pyro for the first time on Quake's Team Fortress mod. And all the other people would play like snipers and stuff, and they'd always miss me. But nobody missed my flamethrower. I remember winning a lot of matches. I didn't care about points. I didn't care about anything. All I cared about was was just mowing down, just setting off my flamethrower. That was, I don't know what that says about me as a person or something like that at that time, but I can tell you I really liked playing Team Fortress back in the day, the original version. And me and the unknown camera person had fun out of school. That's what we ended up doing, at least for several weekends. I remember doing that at least more than once. Her mother would bring us. And we would go. We'd play all night. This would be like a Friday or Saturday night or something. It would cost like maybe $10 or something like that, cheaper than a movie ticket even then. And then we get Dairy Queen at the end of the night or something, and I get like like something from Dairy Queen, a Blizzard or something. And it was just some of the best times I remember having as a kid at that time. I didn't have to, I felt like I had more of a connection with people that were older than me. Probably because of my intelligence. I could have a conversation about stuff. I guess you would say this would be like the first time. Like when I was young, I always felt like I had something in common with the people online because at the time of, the way the internet was at the time, because of what it required to get online, the people that were online were usually like all obsessed with like science fiction movies and video games and stuff like that. And these would be people that I'd be able to communicate with on a level, on like an even level. Whereas in person, other than the unknown camera person, and even the unknown camera person, like some of my references would go right over their head, although vice versa would be the truth as well. But I'd always be able to, but on the internet, I'd always be able to find somebody I'd have something in common with to talk to. The chat rooms were a big thing back then. And here in the online video game space, this was basically just an exception of, an extension of what chat room was, which is you could be playing against each other from all over the world. Even back then, you could do that. See who's the best, and that was what was fun. Those were some great nights. And I want to thank, obviously, the Unknown Camera Person for bringing me those nights. Of course, also, my obsession with this soda also came from that. Hey, you got to try this stuff, which is kind of funny because they really don't drink this stuff anymore. If they do, it's the sugarless stuff because this stuff has a lot of sugar in it. So, fast forward a little bit. Let's go forward 1 year. 8th grade. Now, this is where my memory and the memory of the Unknown Camera Person disagree. Maybe I'm wrong in that. I really don't know. But 8th grade comes around and they announce the social events. They might have actually had a social event during the fall, fall half of the year, meaning like the September to December. I don't remember. I couldn't tell you. I say no, I don't remember one happening. But then again, at that point, I pretty much just tuned out all that stuff. Like I said, I wasn't going to go, so what did I care if it happened or not? But I'm pretty certain that it didn't. The Unknown Camera Person disagrees with me. They think that it did happen. So that can be neither here nor there. But I do remember something else happening. Now, I mentioned before about how they were so much against calling these events dances. Like I said, back then, I didn't want to be a really, like I said, I didn't even have attraction to anybody. I was a kid, So, again, I don't know what that tells you about me, but that was just too early for that to happen. And so they basically the only thing that was enjoyable about, or even it wasn't that enjoyable, but like I said, the basketball was like what I ended up doing, because there was just, out of all the things that were crap, that seemed to be the thing that was the least crap. It was still crap, but it smelled a little bit less bad than the rest of it. So between the January and I guess June half of the year, they make an announcement that there's going to be an actual dance. They basically decided to just drop all pretenses at this time. It was the second half of 8th grade, of the year of 8th grade, that they said flat out, this is going to be a dance. We're not going to have the gym open. And I was like, oh, God, no. I mean, did they think I was going to get a date? I mean, I didn't date until I was until after I got out of college for the most part. I was like, did they seriously think that there was going to, did they seriously think people, like I said, I remember even back then in 6th grade, there was nobody at these events that would not want to play basketball. Again, I'm a guy, so take for that what you will. And everybody else that wanted to play basketball were guys. So again, take for that what you will. But I certainly didn't have any interest in this. And to make that announcement, to drop all your BS pretenses, that was like a hardest no. So again, I didn't tell my folks it was going to happen. And the days would pass. And our student president, who I didn't vote for, kept going on the announcements every night, or just at every afternoon when the school was about to let the students out. Guys, we need to have more tickets sold. He'd be pleading with us, begging to buy more tickets. Still $10 a person. So not only was it $10 a person, but now you were getting less event. That makes perfect sense, right? That's a school administrator's thinking. And it didn't happen. I remember it not happening. the unknown camera person disagrees with me. They think it might have happened. I'm not totally certain, but who cared? LAN party night. At this point, we were probably playing Unreal Tournament at that point. At that point, it was like, load up Unreal Tournament. Let's actually have some fun. So I'd load Unreal Tournament on my laptop. Those became the go-to games for LAN parties. Unreal Tournament, Quake 2, at least at that time. Probably Quake 3 beat Quake 2 later on. But Unreal Tournament for like the longest time was like the go-to LAN party game. And we just end up like one person would put it on their laptop because the system specs were doable. Quake 3 had a much higher minimum system specs. So we could load like Unreal Tournament onto a laptop or something and network it together with another machine and play. And we just have a great night. So much fun. Probably the most fun that I would have had in those years. Or basically playing games, computer games against, with my friends. Against my friends, with my friends. Those were great times. Now, I'm sure that a lot of people are going to say, well, I did that with my friends at that time, except we were playing GoldenEye on a 4-person Nintendo 64 console. Or we were playing Smash Brothers on that, or something along those lines. I tip my drink to you. I couldn't afford a Nintendo 64. I never had a Nintendo 64. So if those are your memories, then cheers. Happy New Year, guys. My name is Maniac with GameAccess.net. Take care. Over and out.